Hare Krishna. The word depression is nowadays most commonly used word. As we know, we have seen, and the depression is the most common illness worldwide. Sometimes it's misunderstood as a usual mood fluctuation and short-lived emotional response to challenge in everyday life. However, seeing sadness and grief are just normal human emotions. They are very normal human emotions. We all have those feelings from time to time, but they usually go away with few days. After few days we just forget it, so they generally go within a few days. But instead, depression is both brain disorder and the state of mind. So it is both. Depression is type of common mental disorder arose due to excessive desire of sense gratification or identifying oneself with independent of absolute, and it's characterized by sadness, loss of interest, loss of pleasure, or feeling of guilt or low self-esteem, and much disturbed sleep, cannot sleep properly, poor appetite, low energy, and very poor concentration on anything. We cannot concentrate properly on things, and it's common mood disorder which contributes to significant psychological and physical distress, physical disability, higher mortality, and when long lasting and with moderate or type of severe intensity, depression may become a serious health condition also. And it can cause serious deficiency. Depression can cause serious deficiency of will, emotions, consciousness, and immunity, availing this virus and bacterial infection to flourish, and at its worst we can lead depression can lead people to suicide also. Simply saying, depression occurs when a person is diagnosed with a condition that's classified as a mood disorder and can bring about long-lasting type of symptoms such as overwhelming sadness, low energy, loss of appetite, and lack of interest in things that used to bring pleasures before. A few days back we used to feel pleasure on certain things, and now suddenly we started feeling differently. We didn't feel any pleasure on those things. We lost interest on those pleasurable things. And sadness, it's a part of being human, but a natural reaction to painful circumstances. All of we experience sadness at some point of our lives, but depression is an illness with many more symptoms than an unhappy mood. Generally we are misunderstanding the unhappy mood with depression, but depression is much more than that unhappy mood. Depression is an illness, we have to understand. Depression is an illness that affect our mind and brain. It is our reaction to something sad, loss of someone, or dejection. When these feelings aggravate and becomes intense, it leads to medical condition that's called clinical depression. Depression not only prevents from enjoying like it could be, or enjoying like we used to enjoy before, but it also takes a heavy toll on death. And untreated depressions poses serious risks of people including illness, diabetes, blood pressure, heart related disorders, and alcohol, consumption of alcohol, drugs, and even suicide. So we have seen like global studies suggest uniform prevalence of mood disorder across the world. It's like lifetime risks of major depression range from 2 to 25%, with most authorities agreeing the range of 10 to 15%. It's about 10% in men and 20% in women. There is almost 300 million people suffering from severe type of depression globally, and with increment of 18% per annum, and one in every three people have some types of other depression symptoms seen once or more in their lifetime. By 2020, the world end of this 2020, by December 2020, the World Health Organization expects depression to be the second frequent cause of morbidity world over. And we are not unaware of the fact that how depression is fast becoming a common lifestyle problem, with many of us suffering from symptoms like anxiety, stress, and insomnia, and insomnia, and these may seem like mere day-to-day problems, but they can turn into a matter of concern in long run. the fear of stigma and lack of support of people with mental disorders have known to be the biggest reason for not being able to get the right treatments. There may not be sure short clinical or medical cure for depression, but there is a medication to slow it down and calm your pent-up self. And the good news is that healing the cause of anxiety and depression is not a painful process or endurance and strain. It's joyful discovery of true and abiding nature. And this illness of mind brain affects tens of millions of people globally, despite of geography, socio-economic status, physical health conditions. It happens to everyone. It doesn't look for geography, it doesn't look for socio-economic status or physical health condition. Depression is by far most prevalent, representing 99% of all mental illness. This major type of psychotic illness represents only 1% other psychotic illness. 99% of mental illness is depression, and the umbrella of depression encompasses major depressive orders and its related mood disorders, including bipolar disorders, postpartum depression, post-traumatic stress syndrome, or anxiety disorder, or suicide. Although there are non-effective treatment of mental disorders, between 76 and 85% of people in low and middle income countries receives no treatment for their disorders. Barrier to effective care, including lack of resources, lack of trained health care providers, and social stigma associated with mental disorders, and other barriers to effective care is inaccurate assessments. In countries of all income levels, we have depressed are often not correctly diagnosed. Major problem is, and other who do not have disorder too often misdiagnosed and prescribed with this antidepressant. And the burden of depression and other mental health condition is on rise globally. World Health Organization Assembly resolution passed in May 2030, almost 7 years back, had called for comprehensive coordinated response to mental disorders at country level. And depression is very real and treatable illness, what we should understand. Generally we feel it's not treatable, but and this is because of myths and misunderstanding and stigma, continued barriers of treatment for many, and the consequences of untreated depression can be very much life-threatening also. Understanding the fact about depression, on the other hand, can be life-savior. Prolonged or chronic depression have a devastating impact on our emotional and physical health. Untreated depressions may put our life at risk. Mental health in must advance materially and medically must advance. Countries like America reports that 70% of those who have died by suicide have depression or bipolar disorders. Other complications of depression can lead to different critical disorders like alcohol or drugs use, headaches and other chronic aches and pains, phobias, panic disorders and anxieties, attacks, trouble with school or work, family and relationship problems, social isolation, excess weight or obesity due to eating disorders, rising the risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes and self mutilation, etc. could be serious outcomes of depression, untreated depressions. And unfortunately we alone cannot just snap ourselves out of depression. If we recognize ourselves with some telltale signs, including presence of feelings of sadness or an empty mood, feeling irritable and restless, feeling anxious, hopeless or helpless, and loss of interest in activities we once used to enjoy, low energy or feeling of fatigue or trouble with concentration, memory or decision makings. If we have trouble with decision makings or change in appetite, weight, or change in sleep pattern or cannot sleep properly, physical symptoms such as headaches and digestive issues, body aches and pains, and don't subsidize with treatment. We treated but still cannot cure, then we should seek help from the professionals, those who are dealing with mental illness or depression things. See, we are not weak, or we are not crazy. Depression is real illness. Sometimes people take it as weakness or as a craziness, but it's not actually the fact. Depression is a real illness that researchers believe is caused mainly due to overwhelming sadness, stress, and dissatisfaction, anger, greed, and so on, due to excessive desire of sense gratification, resulting imbalance in certain chemicals within our brain called these neurotransmitters. Some experts are even starting to frame depression as a systematic disease. It's not just out of the blues. And the neurotransmitters like norepinephrine, what makes our heart rate, this norepinephrine that makes our heart rate and blood pressure soar during fight or flight response to stressful times, or serotonin is the chemical which feels good chemical that helps regulate our mood and plays a role in our overall sense of well-being. And there is dopamine which helps regulate emotions, memory, thinking, motivation, and reward play an important role in regulating our mood as well. And it also helps in it is also being involved in many other functions throughout our body. And sometimes people become depressed for what seems like to a good reason. People say, I had a good reason to get depressed, but maybe they lost their job or close friend passed away. But with clinical depression, there doesn't necessarily to have reason for how you feel, and those good reasons are also not really reasons to feel depressed. You should understand. There isn't necessarily, there doesn't need to have a reason to be how you feel. The chemicals in the brain are responsible for mood control may be out of balance, causing us to feel bad, even though everything in our life is going well. Sometimes because of this chemical disbalance also we get mental illness. And other case, a person can be depression for no reasons also. Sometimes if we ask them, or if we try to find, there is no reason at all, but they just feel depressed. They feel sad, or they feel lonely, they feel fear, whatever they feel, and they just get depressed. Depending on the number and severity of symptoms, a depressive episode can be categorized as mild and moderate or severe. Mild is treated by oneself. We can just be conscious and treat ourselves. And if we are in the level of moderate or severe, then a key distinction is also made between depression in people who have or do not have history of manic episodes. Both types of depression can be chronic, it can be extended over period with real pace, especially if they go untreated. And we can see different types of depression, like postpartum depression. It's like as much 80% of new mothers experience the baby blues, and symptoms include mood swinging, sadness, and fatigue. It's this is not, it just doesn't go longer, passes within couple of weeks. And if it doesn't, if this alarming symptoms like feeling sadness or emptiness doesn't go within a couple of weeks, then we should think about this, because this might cause serious damage to child and mother's health. Otherwise it's common. And there is a recurrent depressive disorder. This disorder involves repeated depressive episodes. During these episodes, a person experiences depressed mood and loss of interest and enjoyment and reduced energy, leading to diminished activity for at least 2 weeks or more. And many people with depression also suffers from anxiety symptoms and disturbed sleep and appetite. And many have feelings of guilt or low self-worth, poor concentration, and even symptoms that cannot be explained by medical diagnosis. And next is bipolar affective disorders. This type of depression typically consists of both manic and depressive episodes, separated by periods of normal mood. Manic episodes involves elevated or irritable mood and overactivity, pressure of speech, and inflated self-esteem, and decreased in need of sleep. On both recurrent depressive order and bipolar affective disorder, we can observe the symptoms like feeling of worthlessness and guilty on the daily basis, decrease of concentration and indecisiveness takes over, and the hobbies and activities we enjoyed previously now doesn't seems to be appealing at all, and start things on death and contemplate on suicide, feel unstable and fatigued, are incredibly dull and slow, and there will be significant change in our weight also. Either we gain weight or we lost weight. Whereas in children and adolescents, depression may also cause low self-esteem and guilt and poor concentration and frequent absence from school or college. Whereas in older adults, unexplained memory loss, sleep problems or withdrawal could be a signs of depression. And depending on the number of severity of symptoms, a depressive episode can be categorized as a mild, moderate or severe. An individual with a mild depressive episode will have some difficulty in continuing with ordinary work and social activities, but will probably not cause to cause them to cease to function completely. They will be functioning in somehow. They will be functioning. During a severe depressive episode, it is unlikely that sufferer will be able to continue with social work or domestic activities except to limited extent. They are just in limited. And as it's a matter of fact that excessive desires for material gain, which is in itself temporary in nature, because we are looking for this all material gains, but our body itself is a temporary. This body itself is not permanent, and all this fact that excessive desire for the material gain, which is in itself temporary and in nature, leads us to stress and frustration when we get emotionally attached to anything, like emotionally we are attached to something over a period and it doesn't exist now anymore, and it leaves a gap, and depression takes over to cope with loss, genetic fluctuation, hormone in the fluctuation in the hormones level, and some medical conditions, post-surgery reactions could be there, and high stress levels also cause depression. It is commonly it is common, but yet it's a severe problem that needs to be tackled before it gets out of our hand. Some common cause of depression can be a genetical issue, like having parents and grandparents with depressions, which increases the risk of depression. The rates of depression are also high among those who have a history of substance use like drugs and alcohols. Other factors linked to depression include brain chemistry imbalance, hormones, season change, stress and trauma like loss of loved one or something, trauma and abuse, chronic stress. The big life change such as divorce or losing job or some big fights, legal issues can trigger depression. Researchers blame this on high levels of hormone cortisol that secrete during this stressful traumatic times. This cortisol affects the neurotransmitters serotonin and can trigger depression. Depression results from complex interaction of social, psychological and biological factors, and people who have gone through adverse life events, unemployment or bereavement, psychological trauma are more likely to develop depression. Like depression can in turn lead to more stress and dysfunctions and worsen the affected person's life situation, health situation, and depression itself could be more severe. There are interrelationship between depression and physical health. For example, cardiovascular disease, the CVDs can lead to depression, and CVDs can lead to depression, and depression can lead to CVDs also, cardiovascular disease. So they have vice versa relation, and there is no single cause of depression. It's brain chemistry, hormones and genetics may all play a role. Other risk factors depression may also include low self-esteem, anxiety disorder, borderline personality disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder, physical or sexual abuse, certain prescriptions of medications could be there, etc., could be there. And we should be happy that these depressions, they have diagnosis and treatments. Clinical depression are treatable. There are effective treatments for all three stages: mild, moderate and severe depression. It can be treated under supervision of professionals by applying treatments such as proper diet plan medication and yoga, source of ultimate truth, behavioral activation, applying herbal treatment with specific yoga postures, and cognitive behavioral therapy, CBTs, and interpersonal psychotherapy, it's called IPT, or antidepressant medications such as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, it's called SSRIs, and the tricyclic antidepressants called TCAs. There are two stages to cope with any types stage of depression. We should understand is one is preventive treatment method, and next is clinical treatment method. Proper diet plan, meditation, and yoga, source of ultimate truth, etc. comes under preventive treatment measures, whereas applying herbal treatment with specific yoga postures, meditation, CBTs, IPTs, SSRIs, and TCAs, ECTs, etc. comes under clinical treatment method, and behavioral activation comes in both preventive method and clinical treatment both. So preventive treatments method are applied to not get depression as well as to deal with 3 stages during clinical treatment also. It can be used in both. So not to get depressed we can use, and after getting depressed we can use this. So proper diet plans with untempered seeds, food with originality on its core of DNA, not tempered with, not played with universal intelligence, and clean food free from all types of make, terror, stress, bloodshed, and depressions, are devoid of any types of fast food, keeps our physical as well as mental health very much fine, because the food what we consume is what transforms as a energy in our body. So if our food are tempered, then our energy is tempered. If our food is not with its originality, but we have modified its core of DNA, then our thoughts get modified in different ways, and our food should be clean in the sense it should be free from all types of make, terror, stress, bloodshed, and depressions. Because okay, for as an example, if we consume non-veg foods, then they are full of make, terror, stress, bloodshed, and depressions, fear. So if we consume that, then it's obvious we get that energy inside us, and that energy affects us. So first thing is we should focus on our proper diet plan, and then comes source of ultimate truth. Ignorance is the cause of all sufferings. If we are ignorant, then we suffer. So everyone in the universe is after the happiness, but they themselves borrowed them, hide them themselves in the dusk of ignorance, far from the ultimate truth. The light of knowledge is facing, they themselves put themselves aside from the light of knowledge, and are facing the sadness, are in distress. So walking in the path revealed by Vedic scriptures in the attainment of pure devotion on the divine lotus feet of absolute beauty, Sri Krishna can refrain any individual from getting into depression or dig out the suffering soul from the clutches of mental health. And then it comes about stress management. Stress can be cause of depression, and it also can make the symptoms of a depression feel more intense. Either way, it's beneficial to keep stress under control. Long-term habits like good nutrition, regular exercise, proper sleep, and meditation can build our resilience to stress, and incorporating a few stress management techniques in our day-to-day life also is very much helpful. The key is finding ones that works for us. Joining a support group or talking with professional can also give us ideas to better manage stress. And there is herbal medicine and yoga. There is ashwagandha with warm water, jatamasi with hot milk, and kapikachu with warm water, juice extract from Brahmi, and Mandukaparni, etc. under the guidance of herbal medicine expert is highly recommended for severe depression type people or moderate depression type people. And there are certain yogic postures like Padmasana, Swasana, Surya Namaskar, Bhujanga Asana, Sarvanga Asana, etc. This pranayam techniques are there like Kapalbhati and Surya Alulom Bilom or Anulom Bilom, and mantra meditation is highly recommended and mantra meditation is highly beneficial in depression. However, should be performed under guidance of professional or qualified tutors. Should not practice on our own self, because may cause adverse effect if we do not practice it properly. And we should always keep in mind the sequence of this sukshma vayama. It's like loosening type of exercise. Asana, pranayama, deep relaxation techniques and meditation should be followed while doing yoga. We generally don't follow this system. And there are different psychological treatments formats for consideration, including individual and group face-to-face psychological treatments delivered by professionals and supervised by therapists. Psychological treatments are also effective for mild depression, and antidepressants can be effective from the treatment of moderate severe depression, but not the first line of treatment for cause of mild depression. They should not be used for treating depression in children, and are not the first line of treatment in adolescents, among whom they should be used with extra caution. Once the American Psychiatric Association suggests that a combination of both anti-depressant and psychological counseling is on average more effective, but each treatment on their own have roughly the same effectiveness. Accessing these two treatments, however, isn't always possible in individuals due to number of factors such as cost and time. So for severe case, conclusive therapy, ECTs may be used, or ECT, it's a procedure in which electrical currents are passed through the brains. So according to National Alliance of Mental Health, ECT is used most often to treat depression and psychotic depressions that hasn't otherwise responded to medications. This depression, according to WHO response, depression is one of the priority conditions covered by WHO's Mental Health Gap Action Program, MHGAP, and the program aims to help countries increase service for people with mental, neurological and substance use disorders through care provided by health workers who are not specialists in mental health. And WHO has developed brief psychological intervention manuals for depression that may be derived by lay workers. An example is Problem Management Plus, which describes the use of behavioral activation, relaxation training, problem solving treatment and strengthening social support. Moreover, manual group interpersonal therapy, IPT, of depression describes group treatment of depression. And thinking healthy covers and use of cognitive behavioral therapy for this parental depression. So what we should understand is depression is a illness and that have cure, and curing procedure is either much happy because it's enjoyable. We can enjoy the curing process, by going through the curing process of depression can cure much more disease, which are much more illness, can have a healthy spiritual, mental and physical health, because proper diet plan is for all illness, and source of ultimate truth is path of perfection, and stress management, herbal meditation and yoga and different psychological treatments format. So we should not get much worried because of depression, but we should be cautious that not to get depressed, or if we see somebody is depressed, then to consult with professionals, not do everything on our own. Yeah, we can take guidance from these websites and everything, but should be under expert guidance, should be under the guidance of expert. Hare Krishna.